Hello and welcome to June in A Year Gardening. Well, I'm now in my next door neighbour's garden, and this is the area that I'm going to be using to growing some more vegetables, and so I'm going to be starting by doing some cleaning and tidying and getting everything else ready. We've got some great things that we're going to go through in today's show, including some planting of some new plants to give us our summer colour, and I'm sure that you're going to really enjoy today's show. But first, I'm going to start off by doing some tidying here. Well, that's a good start. Started to clear the ground, and it's lovely soil, and we can clear this back and we're going to start putting our first raised bed in this side. It's going to take me a little bit of a while to do, but while we've got this lovely warm weather, nothing better than being in the garden. We've got to string this, cut it back, and then clear a lot of these weeds, but that's just part of enjoyment. What's not enjoyment is this. This is bindweed, and this is all through the soil, and I've got to take every single bit of this out of the ground, because if you just split just a little bit off, that will grow to a new plant, and we can't afford to do that. So all of this is going to get burned in the incinerator. Well, in a couple of weeks' time we should have all of this cleared, first raised beds going in, and some of those seedlings that are growing in the polytunnel coming out here to give some crops for this year. Can't wait for that. Watch how this goes. Well, hasn't the weather been strange over the last month or so? April, we had all of those frosts. Now we're into May, and we've got loads and loads of rain coming through. Nice sunshine in between, but a lot of rain as well. So I've come down into the polytunnel just to check on a few bits and pieces. And what I have got in here growing now, obviously, I've got some new plants. And in here, I have some lovely osteospermum plants. And these are little babies. These are going to go out into the border in a week or so's time. Beautiful mix of colours of daisies, and they're going to be absolutely fantastic. I've also been bringing on some strawberries in here, because the garden is about a month behind really where it should be because of that cold April, and things that I would expect to have been in full flower now, like our honeysuckle and our early clematis, are still just in bud. So the garden's a little bit late coming through this year. But my first potatoes, they're coming through the ground nicely, and I've actually got some small peas now on my first crop of peas. So things are moving on as the ground warms up. Where I put my beans in, I'm afraid I've had a little bit of bird damage on a couple of those, so I'm going to just plant some more beans around those in the ground, so we'll get another lot growing through. Well, with my strawberries in here, I've got some old garden pots and containers which we don't use in the garden anymore, and things like the hanging baskets. I've got one here, and these are where I'm growing my strawberries inside at the moment. So all in all, even though the weather's not that clement outside, we can still do a bit of gardening. Well, just before I leave the polytunnel, I'd like to just show you also something else we've been growing in here, which is some lupins for the garden as well. And they're coming on nicely, and these won't be that long now until they're ready to go out into the garden. Absolutely beautiful summer plant, and I'm so looking forward to the beauty they're going to bring to the garden this year. One final thing to show you, these are the cabbages that I put in about 5 weeks ago, and they're doing rather well. The cauliflower's just up underneath the table at the end there. So all in all, I'm quite pleased with the productivity that this polytunnel is delivering for us. One of the great things about having kept what is essentially a video diary over the last 12 months is that we can compare where we were a year ago to where we are now. And as you can see in this shot, I was just setting up the rose garden. This is what it looks like now. Well, you probably wouldn't think it was the same garden, but these are the roses that we were putting in, and it has filled out tremendously well. And we have this lovely border of geraniums that have come through and taken on through. The fennel is coming through nicely, and everything is building out nice and solidly. You cannot see 1 square inch of soil in this section. The other side still hasn't filled out yet, but this is how the garden should grow, and I'm so pleased with the way it looks. Well, my first early potatoes are growing really strongly now, so I've just covered them up with some grass clippings. Now, I've been cutting the grass in the garden earlier, and a great use for your grass clippings is to earth up your potatoes. As long as you're covering them, keeping them dark, they'll keep growing through. Great use for a waste product, and at the end of the season that gets dug into the bed and it's an actual compost as well, so it's a win-win situation. Well, hello and welcome back to the greenhouse. Now, when I'm planting my seeds, I tend to follow the weather conditions, and as you know, we had a very cold April, and the frosts nearly every night of the month, and the garden was really held back, and May has been wet and windy. But now we're about halfway through, 3/4 of the way through May, and I thought what I would do now, I'm going to actually get the seeds in that I should have put in April. So I'm going to start putting those in now, and hopefully they're going to come on nice and fast now the weather is warming up, and we'll get some good germination. Well, the first seeds that I'm actually going to be putting in today are my beetroot seeds. Now, I'm going to plant these individually. They're nice large seeds, and I'm going to plant those into individual pots. So let's have a look at that now. So these are the little pots that I've got here. They are a lovely little biodegradable compostable pot. So I've filled each one with a mix, 50% of peat-free compost, 50% from my own garden compost, and then a couple of shovelfuls of horticultural sand to give us a nice seed mix. And I've got these in here now, so what I'm just going to do is I'm going to pop some of these seeds. As I say, they're a nice large seed, and we can just put them individually onto the surface of each pot. And as I do so, I'm trying to keep them individual. There might be 2 go into a couple, but generally it will be 1 to a pot. And then we'll be able to have these grow and then plant them out in the polytunnel when we've got some nice baby plants. Talking of the polytunnel, the cabbages that went in, the all year round cabbage and the cauliflowers are looking really good, and we are pleased with those. In fact, I'm going to be cutting back some cabbage leaves today for dinner this evening, which will be rather nice. So we just popped 1 seed into each of those pots there. I'll just pop those back into the packet there for a while, and then all I'm doing is I just press the seed down in the middle. Make sure we're going down around about 1/2 inch or so inside, and then we'll just spread the compost lightly over the top of those. There we go. Another couple here. Boom, 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 boom. And then all I need to do now is grab my watering can and give those just a gentle watering in, and within 10 to 14 days we should have some nice beetroot growing in there. And I'll take those off of here, put them onto my seed racking over the side here, and we'll keep an eye on those for the next week or so. So that's the beetroot planted. Next thing on my list are some parsnips, and I'm going to be planting those exactly the same way into the individual pots and transplanting those out. I will keep enough also to put a trench in a couple of 3 weeks time, directly sown into the ground. Now the only difference when I'm doing my parsnip seeds is that I will make the indentation in the pots before I pop the seeds in, because these are very light, wispy type of seed, so I want to make sure that they have their target area in the pots. First of all, we just grab the seeds, pop those into my hand, and you will see how very light they are. I don't know whether you can actually see those, but they're a very light blow away seed. So we're just going to pop those now individually again into the pot, see if I can get them in one, so hopefully I can. There we go. And put that into here. And as we've got these in, then I will fill in again over the top, just by bringing the soil in lightly over the seed. And again, we're looking around about 10 to 14 days for germination on these. So there's the pots all watered. There's my label with parsnip. We'll pop that just into the back of one of those pots and put it up on the rack. Well, now I'm back in the greenhouse, and I've just taken delivery of this pack of giant plugs from Garden. These are hardy fuchsias, and there are 12 plugs in the pack. And I must say, if you're buying online, sometimes I've had plants arrive from certain online garden centres that are disgusting, smashed up, horrible. But the quality of these little plugs is absolutely superb. Look at that for a lovely plant. And I'm going to be planting these out now. And what I'm saying, I'd like to say a big thank you to Peter, who's the head gardener at Garden, for supplying such quality little plants. And it's my first place to go to for any plants that I'm buying these days. You can't always propagate yourself. You can't always grow from seed yourself. So if you've got to buy, and you're going to buy online, I just recommend Garden as a place to go. But let's put these into some pots. So what I'm going to be planting these into, I've got some coir, some organic mix, and also some peat-free compost, all mixed up. And it's a little bit moist because the coir you expand with water, and I've been putting these into these pots. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to pop these plugs into these pots here, and then just top them up with compost. So just pop that in there, and I'm not going to overfill the pot, only to around about a millimetre or two above the top of the plug, just so that it's a nice firm sit for the plant. So you can see there we're just fractionally above the height of the plug, and that's going to grow on over the next couple of weeks before we plant them out into the garden. Now I've got 12 of these which I'm going to be planting out, and let's just do that, and then we'll show you what they look like in the pots. Well, now I'm into the polytunnel where I've brought those fuchsia plants, and we've got those into their individual pots, and they're going to grow on in here for a few weeks till they root nicely, and then we're going to plant those out into the borders. And as they're a hardy fuchsia, all we've got to do is cut them back late autumn, and they're going to die down, and then we're going to have lovely plants growing again next year. What a great buy. Whilst I'm here, just on this side here, I've got my little geraniums. I've got New Guinea impatiens there, my lupins at the back, osteospermums over the side, they're growing, and quite a few of my perennials which are coming through. Obviously my cabbages and my cucumbers and my cauliflowers are going really well, and we've got radishes and we've got beetroot in pots ready to come out on this side. So all in all, things are looking great, especially when I look behind me and I see the lovely strawberries coming on my hanging baskets. Happy days. Well, one of the little jobs that I gave myself to get done was to remove the little wooden border on the soft fruit garden here and just turn it into a bank. And so I've done that, and we're just going to just build that up maybe with a little bit of compost just to smooth it in, and then we can mow straight into the bank. And I think that's going to be a lot softer than having a wooden edge to this, and it's going to be easier to maintain as well. Now, that's one of the jobs that I've been doing, but here are a few things that you can be doing through the month of June. Well, now our tulips have finished flowering, so what we can do is just break off the seed heads from the top so that we can ensure that all of the energy of the plant is going down into the bulbs to create better bulbs for next year. Now, whether you grow your own from seed or cuttings, or whether you go to the garden centre, it's a great time now to pop out your summer bedding. And I've got these rather lovely impatiens which we're going to be putting around the base of the mound here. And as the days are warming up, don't let the seedlings dry out in the greenhouse. They don't need overwatering, but they do need to be kept moist. We cannot afford to let them dry out and die. So we've got just a few in here, and then I've got to nip down to the Polytunnel and water those as well. And when our plants are flowering, they need a little bit of extra help, a little bit of feed, a little bit of liquid seaweed into my watering can, and then we feed directly down onto the root of the plant. And when I'm doing this, I take the rose off the watering can, nice little mix up, and then feed right down to the roots, give them a nice drink, and we get round the other side as well. Give them that little bit of help to keep up this magnificent display. Well, that brings me to the end of this episode of A Year Gardening for June. And I hope you've enjoyed what we've covered today. We've gone through a fair few bits, and we are late this year. We are still sowing seeds, but there's a few things that I'm going to be doing in the next show, which I hope you find very interesting. One of those is last autumn I took one tendril branch of a honeysuckle and I layered it, fixed it to the ground, and in the hopes that it would start to grow a new plant. Well, that's growing 2 or 3 new plants on there, and I'm going to cut that from the mother plant and pot those on to grow 2 or 3 new plants, and I'll show you that in the next episode. I've also been asked if I would do a section on weeds, bane of all of our lives. Now, I'm totally organic in my gardening. I don't use any pesticides, insecticides or weed killers, but I do use chemicals that you'll find in the kitchen, and I'll go through some of those with you in the next show as well, and hopefully you'll find that of some use. But today I'm just sitting here enjoying the early June sunshine, and you can't get better than that. After the April we had with all of the frosts, the May with the rain and the winds, finally the good Lord has given us some sunshine to celebrate our gardens, and that is a real joy. And there's nothing better than being outside and having some fun in the garden. So, as I say, I hope you've enjoyed today. I do thank you for your company, and I do look forward to seeing you in the next show. But until then, I've got a little glass of ale, lager ale this one, not my normal thing, but I thought I'd just wish you all the very, very best. So stay well, stay safe, be kind to each other. Happy gardening. Cheers.